Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing my biggest fantasy romance book haul of all time. Alright guys, welcome to my ultimate romantasy book haul, sharing almost 40 fantasy romance books. So, what ended up happening is, my birthday. I received a lot of books for my birthday, which was at the end of September. I also received a lot of books from publishers and authors that I am so thankful for. And on top of that, I went to Books, Gowns, and Crowns and spent way too much money. Honestly, it was kind of dangerous because I was there with my husband, so I just kept asking for books as like birthday gifts, and it went a little out of control. So, I have a ton of romantasy books to discuss, a bunch of special editions, also dark fantasy romance. I also have some like darker contemporary romances that I'll save for the very end. But overall, this is going to be a very long video. So I will give you a spoiler-free plot synopsis for every book and then my thoughts if I've read it. And thank you guys so much for watching. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about all these romantasy books. Alright guys, so starting off with special editions, first up are the first two books from the Kindred's Curse saga. So we have Glow of the Everflame, which is book 2, and then Spark of the Everflame, which is book 1. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Kindred Curse saga by Penn, it is fantastic. So in the story, we are following this girl named Diem, who lives in a world that the Descended, who are the children from the gods, essentially rule over the humans and treat them pretty cruelly. So Diem is really hoping to escape her village, and everything changes when her mother ends up going missing. Well, while trying to discover what happened to her mother, Diem kind of ends up thrust into the middle of all of these politics going on with the Descended royalty. Now, while this is happening, there is a rebellion brewing within all of the humans who are trying to take down the Descended, and Diem has to decide what side she wants to kind of ally with. And overall, I loved the first two books in this series and cannot wait to continue. Now, I do have a bit of a story time about these special editions. First up, they are gorgeous. They are so pretty. Arcane absolutely kills it, and I want to give a huge shout out to Arcane. So, I ordered these books right before I was going away on a trip, and I realized it said they were delivered, but I never received them. It said they were delivered to a P.O. box, which I don't even own. So I reached out to Arcane, and right away they were like, we'll send you a replacement. So they did that. The issue is I was gone when they sent the replacement, and I didn't have anyone collecting my mail. So this book sat out in the middle of like a horrible rainstorm for about 2 days. So I come home, I fully expect these books to be destroyed. I pick up the package and the books literally fall out of the package. The package disintegrated. That is how soaked the package was. The books, completely dry. They were fine. Not a single issue. So thank you, Arcane, for packing your books the way you do. These books, I was positive were going to be completely damaged and like not salvageable. And they're great. They're in perfect condition. So another just huge shout out to Arcane Society. One of the best book boxes. And next up, we have Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider. This is the Fairy Loot Special Edition, and I am absolutely obsessed with this art style. I just think it looks like a video game, and it is so cool. This is one of my favorite books Fairy Loot has ever made. If you're unfamiliar with Metal Slinger, I loved this book. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but the ending is as crazy as everyone says it is. Oh my gosh, this is a great book to go into completely blind. So if you're unfamiliar with the plot of this, without giving away spoilers, we are following this girl who is living in this community that has been exiled from another community. Well, the community with the power ends up hosting an annual market every year, and they invite the exiled kind of community. our main character ends up going. She's very excited, but pretty much right as she gets to this market, she ends up doing something somewhat reckless and breaks a peace agreement between the two people, setting off a chain of events that are just going to lead to complete chaos. And it is so much fun. I cannot wait for the sequel of this book. So definitely one of my favorite books I've added to my collection. So I just looked up the plot to this next book, and I am literally kicking myself that I have not started this book yet. It seems like the perfect book to read this time of year, Immortal Consequences. It is a young adult, dark academia fantasy romance following 6 students that attend Blackwood Academy, a boarding school perched on the edge of the afterlife. So I guess every 100 years or so, there are trials that if someone ends up winning, they will become part of Blackwood Elite. And if you lose, you then have to go into the beyond. So we're following these 6 students as they compete against these 4 or within these 4 different trials, and only one will be the winner. So loyalties are going to be tested, there's going to be sabotage, and it sounds epic. So I know this was, I'm pretty sure, a book of the month option, and I have a few friends that were talking about this, but I didn't realize it was dark academia, and I feel like I've been reading or seeing a lot of books that kind of have a purgatory setting, so very interested, but definitely a book I want to try to read in October. And next up, we have a book that I know I am going to pronounce the title wrong. So I actually looked up how this title is supposed to be pronounced. Unfortunately, the author pronounces it 2 different ways, and I am not sure which is the correct pronunciation. So, Katabasis, possibly by R.F. Kuang. Now, I have read other books by R.F. Kuang, such as The Poppy War. Oh my gosh, that book is brilliant, but also so just emotionally devastating. So I have not picked this up yet. I will probably pick this up a little bit later into the winter. All I know about this is we are following these 2 grad students who happen to be rivals as they journey to hell to try to save their professor's soul after his soul ended up in hell after a magical accident. Now, I'm pretty sure this does have a romance, so I'm assuming there is going to be a romance between these 2 grad students, but I am not positive. I also have noticed this is getting somewhat mixed reviews, so let me know if you read this. What did you think? And next up, we have yet another Fairy Loot Special Edition. So, Warrior Princess Assassin by Brigid Kemmerer. This is her adult debut and also features an MFM romance, so very, very steamy. Now, all I know about this is we are following a warrior king who possesses fire magic, then a princess whose fading magical abilities could doom her people, and an assassin that is in love with her, are all bound by power, duty, deception, and desire. And somehow they are all going to have to work together to save their people, and they all are in a romance, apparently. So I actually met Brigid Kemmerer at Books, Gowns, and Crowns, and I got this signed. I was so excited. I loved the Curse So Dark, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this title. Curse So Dark and Deadly. A YA kind of Beauty and the Beast reimagining I read when I first started BookTube, so I'm very excited to check out her adult romantasy. And next up, I have 3 different copies of Alchemised by SenLinYu, which I realize is a tad excessive, but I completely forgot Fairy Loot was picking Alchemised as their book of the month. So I will say I think the Fairy Loot version is my favorite out of the 3. This book is gorgeous, and I feel like it really fits the theme of the book, so I absolutely love this. Then I did special order the Waterstone Special Edition. Oh my gosh, I don't know why this one is so much heavier than the other ones, but I'm obsessed with these end pages. I just think they are so pretty, so I absolutely love this edition. And then, ooh, I lied, this actually might be the heaviest. Then we have the Barnes & Noble edition. I don't think it's a special edition. I just ordered it from Barnes & Noble. I do have a slight gripe about this. You can kind of tell already. I've noticed with Barnes & Noble's editions recently, the dust jackets don't fit. So this dust jacket feels way too big for this book, and it just comes off super easily. So that is a little bit annoying. Like, I just don't love the way it feels. But overall, I definitely do not need 3 editions. Had I known that Fairy Loot was going to be picking it as their book, I probably wouldn't have ordered this one. But either way, I have been tabbing and kind of taking notes as I read with this one, so it was worth it in the end. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Alchemised by SenLinYu, I'm sure many of you know it started out as Harry Potter fanfic, manacled. All of the nods to Harry Potter and Handmaid's Tale were removed, and it has been traditionally published as Alchemised. Now, the plot of Alchemised, we are following this girl named Helena, who was part of this resistance against necromancers. Her side ended up losing this war, and she was put into isolation. Well, she has now been taken out of isolation by these necromancers, and they realize something is up with her memory, and they believe she might have the key to something the rebellion was working on, but they don't know how to kind of get into her memories. So she ends up being shipped up to a super necromancer known as the High Reeve, and he is going to try to kind of figure things out. And it's their romance. Manacled was one of my top books I've ever read just in my life, so I know once I finish this, I will absolutely love it. And next we have My Big Fat Vampire Wedding. So this is from Forbidden Wing, which is part of the Locked Library book subscription box. Now, I don't read a ton of rom-coms, however, I feel like this is the perfect time for this type of book, and I do really love this edition. So in this, we are following Pandora, and Pandora is a vampire on a deadline. She needs to marry by the end of the year, or else she will lose her family's fortune. So her solution is to propose a fake marriage with a broke PhD student that she has had a crush on, and then chaos ensues. So I cannot wait to get to this. It seems like the perfect book for spooky season. And this next book was actually a gift from my friend Kat. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Kat sent me multiple books for my birthday, completely spoiled me. And when I saw this book, the scream I screamed, this book is gorgeous. Actually, I'm pretty sure Kat got me the original indie pub version of Anathema, and now she sent me the special edition. So once again, Kat, thank you so much. I'm absolutely obsessed with all of the books you sent me, but this one in particular, like I completely lost it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Anathema, and if you want to read Anathema, I'm actually hosting a Patreon read-along for this book over on my Patreon. But Anathema is a really eerie, dark fantasy romance following Maeve. So when Maeve was a child, she was found outside the Eating Woods, or the Witch Knell, and she was raised in this very patriarchal society where everyone was a little bit leery of her because of how she was found as a baby. Well, her sister ends up being sent to the Eating Woods after doing something that the town sees as very, very bad, and Maeve, not wanting to lose her sister, ends up following her. Well, when she does, she ends up going into a completely different realm where she very quickly runs into an assassin who is also named the Scorpion and has some very interesting magical abilities, and the Scorpion believes that Maeve might be the key to helping him in the other realm. It's their romance. It is fantastic, and once again, just super eerie and creepy, and the perfect read for October. The second book has just released, so I'm hoping to read these books back to back, reread this, and then jump into the second. So definitely another read for October. And next up is a dark romantasy / Hades and Persephone reimagining. So Spring's Descent. I picked this up at Books, Gowns, and Crowns, and actually my husband Scott is the one who spotted this book, because if you notice, the inside hardback is so pretty. He spotted it from like across the convention hall and was like, I think you need that book. So absolutely love it. And then this is the inside artwork. But apparently this story, like I said, is a Hades and Persephone reimagining. We are following the Demon King, who has become absolutely obsessed with this witch, and he has decided he is going to make her his captive / queen. However, when he is finally able to claim her, he realizes that she is not this meek little human that he was expecting. Instead, she reveals that her world is, I believe, starting to crumble from some sort of death magic, and on her 21st birthday, everything is going to fall apart. So she is hoping that he will be the key to saving her world, and it's their romance. I cannot wait. Now, I have never read this author before, so if anyone has read this author or this series, please let me know, what did you think? And next up is The Scorpion and the Night Blossom. This is a YA fantasy romance following this girl that 9 years previously, a war shattered her family. So now our main character has decided to enter the immortality trials in the hopes of being the winner and receiving a pill that can save her dying mother. But these immortality trials are unbelievably dangerous. She will have to face rivals and even death itself. And while she is facing down all of these obstacles, there is a secretive competitor that seems to be trying to help her, but she does not understand his true motives. So this sounds so good. I love a fantasy romance with trials. You would think I would get sick of it. I have not yet. I love a good trial romantasy. And this was so kindly sent to me from Kelly for my birthday. Thank you so much, Kelly. This book was not on my radar, but it sounds awesome, and I cannot wait to get to this. And this next book is on my October TBR. Pretty sure it was also on my September TBR, but I'm definitely getting to it in October. We have A Land So Wide by Erin A. Craig. Now, I've read other books by this author, and they were YA fantasy romance or like Gothic romantasy, and they were super creepy. So I cannot wait to see what she does for like an adult version. And I was talking to the person that I bought this book from, and she was saying that this is somewhat spicy. So that'll be different. I'm very excited for this. So apparently all I know about this is we are following this girl named Greer, who lives in a town that is called Mistaken, and this town is cursed to, if you spend the night in Mistaken, you can no longer leave, ever. Well, when Greer's boyfriend ends up being captured by Bright Eyes and taken past Mistaken's wards, Greer realizes she has to go save him, so she leaves, and while searching for her boyfriend, I'm assuming, or close friend, she starts to uncover some secrets about Mistaken, and it goes from there. I need to read this immediately. So I think this will actually be the next book I pick up in October. And that brings us to my current read. So I'm about 4 chapters in at the time I'm filming this. One Little Nightmare. I actually picked this up at Books, Gowns, and Crowns as soon as I saw the cover. The cover of this book is just so like grotesque yet beautiful. I love it so much. And so far I'm really enjoying the story, although it is darker than I was expecting. I don't know why. Obviously, this cover is like giving off very dark romance, but there was a scene in the very beginning that was just, it was brutal. Essentially, all I can really say about this book is it takes place in a psychiatric hospital. We are following a guy that is in a psych ward, and he believes he is crazy, and he is harboring this dark entity. Then we're also following a siren who is desperate to end a curse, and then a mysterious girl whose trauma is painted on her skin, and they have to figure out what is real, what is a hallucination. Pandora's box has been opened and chaos has ensued, and it all goes from there. While all this is going on, there are also these merciless gods that are kind of pulling the strings, and once again, are very, very merciless. Like, they are absolutely terrible, which honestly is part of the reason why I'm enjoying this book so much. I love when, like, gods are kind of seen as being these super evil entities, which is also probably why I like the Lady of Darkness and Legacy series so much. I'm now just realizing that. But overall, I will have a full review of this on Instagram once I finish. And speaking of the Legacy series, next up we have Dawn of Chaos and Fury. This is the final book in the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roehrich. I am going to ugly cry as soon as I finish this book. I am not mentally prepared to finish this book. I can't say goodbye to these characters. I love these characters with all of my heart. Like, it's gonna be a time. I was so excited when I was approved for an arc of this. I honestly didn't think I was gonna be sent a physical arc, and she is floppy, like as floppy as can be. I actually took this to Books, Gowns, and Crowns to have Melissa K. Roehrich sign it, and I fangirled so hard. Literally favorite author of all time. So I'm so excited to have this book, if you can't tell by the stupid smile on my face. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Legacy series, It is one of my absolute favorites. I've pitched this series so many times. I'm sure most of you are sick of hearing it. But we are following Tessa. Tessa lives in a world where the gods have granted power to their children, the legacy rule over the Fae. Our main character, Tessa, is a Fae, and when she comes of age, she ends up being selected to be the primal source to the Heir of Endings, a position that Tessa never thought she would be placed in, because she is going to be the power source of the Heir of Endings. He is going to put marks on her that will allow him to draw power from Tessa, but also feel her emotions, sense when she's near, and she will become kind of physically drawn to him. So it is a forced mating bond, and it's pretty terrible. The first book is really a lot of miscommunication and Tessa just trying to find her own autonomy and self-worth while everyone is really trying to use her. And honestly, that kind of follows throughout all of the books until Tessa really gets to embrace everything. And I just love her growth, but I love all of the characters in this series. It has a little bit of everything, and it's just so good. So please, if you have not read the Legacy series, you need to. It is amazing. Just check the trigger warnings. And next up, we have Of Shadow and Moonlight. This is the first book in a adult fantasy romance series, and this was another impulse purchase from Books, Gowns, and Crowns. So in this, we are following a girl who is fated to die young and a man who is cursed to live forever. So Cassie ends up meeting Damien, and he brings her into this world of gods and monsters. And then Cassie realizes that she might have this hidden power within her blood, and she's gonna have to decide what she wants to do with the time she has left. And I'm assuming it's a romance between Cassie and Damien, and it sounds absolutely epic. This is also a new to me author, so if you have read this series or this author, please let me know, what did you think? And this next book sounds so good. So A Lust for Blood, this is a dark romantasy / Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde reimagining. I don't think I've ever read another book that like takes inspiration from that tale. So in this, we are following this girl that realizes that she is starting to turn into a monster and she has a lot of bloodlust. So she decides to self-isolate in a forbidden forest in order to save all of the people around her. Well, enter a demon slayer who shows up in her woods, and they start to have a bit of a romance, not realizing that he is actually supposed to be hunting her. And I cannot wait. Now, I have no idea if there is an audiobook for this, but if there is, I will be picking this book up immediately. And next up is yet another impulse buy from Books, Gowns, and Crowns, Strange Gods. Now, this is a young adult dark romantasy following Spooky. Now, Spooky is a troubled teen that ends up getting sent to a wilderness boot camp for troubled teens. Now, she plans on just keeping her head down and hoping that this will be her fresh start. That is until a run-in with another camper causes her to enter the woods. And when she gets into the woods, she's noticed by something much more ancient, dangerous, and hungry. And it goes from there. That is all I know about this book. That is all I needed to know about this book. It sounded epic. Also, the author was such a sweetheart. I talked to her for quite a bit. So another book I cannot wait to read. And this next book was sent to me from my friend Keri over at Booked for Romance. Thank you so much, Keri. I literally had just been talking to my patrons about this book and how I hadn't heard anyone really talking about it and it sounded really good. And 2 days later, this showed up on my doorstep. So once again, thank you so much, Keri. So this is Once Upon a Demon's Heart by K.M. Moronova. I read Fabric of Our Souls by this author, which is a dark romance. It is unhinged, but it was so much fun. So I'm really hoping I will absolutely love this. I know Keri really enjoyed it. So in this, we were following this demigod known as Alira, and she has been cursed to repeat her death over and over, and she is killed by this demon known as the Bloody Knight. Well, she decides she is going to try to figure out a way to break this curse, and ends up bonded to the Bloody Knight that keeps killing her, and together they are going to have to find a way to end this curse and save their two respective peoples. I have very high hopes for this. I am a little worried. Reincarnation and time loops are not my favorite, but I'm really hoping that this becomes like a standout. So another book I will be reading in October. And next up, we have The Veiled Heir. Now, this is the start of an adult fantasy romance series featuring mermaids or sirens. In this, we are following marine biologist Ashira. Now, she never suspected that she is the heir to Atlantis until her mother's murder ends up thrusting her into this world of rebellion, power, and political intrigue. In order for her to assume this position, she has to learn everything she can about this world and this magic, and she is hoping this brooding commander might be able to help, and it is a slow burn romance between the two of them. I also picked this up at Books, Gowns, and Crowns, and once again, the author of this was so sweet. She talked about this book for quite a while, and I got a very good grasp of like the plot and everything, so I'm really hoping to pick this up. Probably not until the spring or summer, because it definitely has that vibe. But I know once I do, I am really going to enjoy it. And next up, we have Unbound. This is a adult fantasy romance featuring dragon shifters. I feel like I've definitely seen an uptick in dragon shifter romantasy, and I'm not mad about it. So in this, we are following 3 different sets of characters. So one of them is this guy who is a dragon shifter, desperate to save his family from this disease that is plaguing them, and he believes the only way to save them is to find this magical shard. So he journeys over the wall, which is forbidden, in the hopes of finding it. Now, while he is doing that, there is a princess who is trying to get out of a forbidden marriage or an arranged marriage, and she believes that this shard might be a way out of it. So she goes looking for this magical shard as well. And then we are following 3 different thieves that are trying to find the shard for some sort of monetary gain and to erase their debts. So I'm assuming at some point all of these characters end up meeting together, and I don't know if it's going to be like an epic adventure between all of them or if they're going to be competing against each other or what's going to go down, but I am very excited to find out. So if you have read this series, also let me know, what did you think? And next up, Sourcebooks ended up sending me House of the Dragon. Now, I believe this was a YA fantasy romance series that released a while ago and is now being re-released with new kind of updated covers, and these covers are awesome. So in this, we are following this half-fae who was left as an orphan when she was very young at the House of Dragons. Now, she has grown up in the House of Dragons, where all of these different fae compete to one day be selected by one of the 12 different tribes. Well, when our main character comes of age, 17, she is not selected. So she decides she is going to come up with this bargain. She will try to convince one of the tribes to select her or lose everything, including her birthright. And accompanying her is some sort of like broody prince, I believe. So it sounds really, really good. If you've read this, let me know, what did you think? Okay, and this next book I've had on 2 previous TBRs. I am really hoping October is the month I read it. If not, definitely in November. But we have Smoke and Scar. First up, the cover of this book is so pretty. It is so pretty. I am so happy I purchased a physical copy. Now, I know my friend April over at Happily Ever April read this and really, really enjoyed it. So I have very, very high hopes. In this, we are following 2 different characters. So this is set in a world where humans and magical creatures really do not get along. And there is a crucible that is held every 25 years in which the humans and these magical creatures fight to the death in the hopes of being the lone survivor. Well, our one character is a fae, I believe warrior, and her love ended up dying in the last crucible. So she is desperate to save her sister from falling to the same fate. So she ends up joining the crucible in order to save her family. Then we are following a human who blames all of these magical creatures for killing his parents. So he joins the Crucible in hopes of saving humanity and ends up being partnered with the girl that he believes is actually responsible for killing his parents, and they are going to have to work together. I cannot wait to read this. Once again, this will definitely be read in October or November. All right, guys, I am down to the final 10 books or so, and I am starting to lose my voice, so I'm probably going to talk a little bit faster in order to get through this video. So next up we have Silvercloak by L.K. Stevens. This is a dark fantasy romance that has a bit of a academic vibe. So in this, we are following Saffron, and when Saffron was very young, her family was murdered by this gang. So Saffron is completely out for revenge, and she ends up going to Silvercloak Academy to learn magic in the hopes of eventually bringing this gang down. Well, she ends up being presented the opportunity to go undercover and infiltrate this gang. And when she does, she ends up meeting the Kingpin's son and starts to realize they have a bit of a connection. And it really goes from there. I loved the fact that the magic system was fueled by pleasure and pain. It was such a unique twist, and I liked the overall vibes of this. I am probably going to lower my rating a little bit since having finished it because some of the parts were a bit forgettable, but I loved the MMC in this so much. I really can't go any more in depth, but he was just the perfect, like, morally gray guy. I was absolutely obsessed with him, and just, once again, the overall, like, gritty, grungy tone of this. So I will definitely be reading the sequel. And I purchased City of Gods and Monsters and the sequel, City of Souls and Sinners, because I am currently hosting a House of Devils read-along over on my Patreon. Now, I did talk about this in my September wrap-up and also my October TBR. I am still kind of unsure how I feel about this series. The books are massive, and I am not the biggest urban fantasy fan. However, the ending of this book has me intrigued. So if you're unfamiliar with the House of Devils series, it is a kind of gritty urban fantasy series following Loren. Now, Loren is a powerless human living in this world, and one day she is out with two of her friends, and one of her friends is kidnapped by these Duskwalkers. Now, after her friend is kidnapped, it does kind of seem like the kidnappers were actually trying to capture Loren, but took her friend when they realized they couldn't get her. So Loren is trying to figure out why these people want her and also trying to get her friend back. So after going to the police and having absolutely no luck, they do not seem to care, she puts her hope in Darren, who is one of the members of the Seven Devils, which is almost like a vigilante mob type group, and hopefully he will help her get her friend back. Also, there are some secrets that have to be uncovered and mysteries and all of these other villainous characters, and it was really fun. Definitely check triggers, especially if you are sensitive to a certain trigger that I am also sensitive to. It happens in this book. I ugly cried, I sobbed, I cursed, it was bad. If you are part of my Patreon, check the Discord. I was not okay. So overall, I'm excited to continue with this series. I'm just a little nervous that it's not going to be like a top 5 series for me. And real quick, I just want to give a huge shout out. When I was at Books, Gowns, and Crowns, I was feeling a little bit tired on the morning that we were leaving, so my husband went to get coffee for both of us and came back with a signed copy of When the Moon Hatched, which is so epic. I've actually gotten other things signed by Sarah A. Parker, but at the time, I forgot to bring my copy of When the Moon Hatched, so I wasn't able to get it signed, and I was actually very upset by that. So this was such an awesome surprise. So thank you so much, whoever you are. You literally made my day. I was smiling from ear to ear the entire car ride home, so thank you so much. And next up, we have the Immortal Dark. Now, I actually purchased this after filming a vampire romance rec video, and I read the plot synopsis of this and was immediately intrigued. Now, like I've done in this video, I did ask you guys what you thought of this book and if you thought I would enjoy it. It seems like a lot of you kind of were like, meh about this book, so this kind of fell a little bit on my TBR. I still want to read this, I just don't know if I'm going to get to it in October. But apparently this is a dark academia vampire romantasy. We're following this girl that after the death of her sister, or disappearance of her sister, she decides to go to a academy where vampires and humans have to work together, and she ends up being partnered with the vampire that is bound to her family, and the very vampire she believes has something to do with her sister's disappearance. So the plot sounds really good. I like how it has a bit of that like mystery aspect to it, but I trust you guys, and a lot of you said this book was like average or okay. So little nervous, but once again, a book I'm hoping to pick up this fall. And last up for fantasy romance, we have Knights of Obedience. This is a dark, spicy, enemies to lovers fantasy romance. Now, this is also from Books, Gowns, and Crowns, but this was not an impulse buy. I've had this book on my Amazon wishlist for a while, so as soon as I saw it, I immediately was like, I need to get this. And the author was awesome. She was so nice. She also had another author there with her. Both of them were great. So this book, once again, Dark Enemies to Lovers, we are following this girl who is a princess, and she is going to be forced to marry King Cyrus in order to save her people. Now, she absolutely does not want to marry this king. However, she knows that the throne has its power, so she is willing to do this in order to save her family and her people. Well, what she isn't expecting is the king's brother to be a huge annoyance. So the king's brother, Layden, realizes that obviously this princess does not love his brother and is trying to get rid of her when something happens, and these two are now going to be forced to work together and try to save their kingdom. And I cannot wait. This is 100% being read in October. I am so mad. I just filmed my October TBR and I forgot to include this, but I've been waiting so long to read this. So another book I cannot wait to get to. And last up is a super dark age gap student-teacher romance, Kiss the Villain by Rena Kent. This edition was also gifted to me from Kat. I love this edition. These sprayed edges are so cool. So thank you so much, Kat. I love it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Legacy of the God series by Rena Kent, if you like dark romance, read the series. It is so good, so dark, unbelievably dark, but also fantastic. I binged that entire series in about a week and a half. I couldn't get enough. God of Fury, by far my favorite dark romance, I think, of all time. It's an romance. It has everything: action, emotion, humor. It is perfect. So Kiss the Villain is kind of a spin-off from the Legacy of the Gods series. We are following Carson and Caden, and it is, like I said, a student-teacher kind of like grumpy sunshine romance. So definitely check trigger warnings, but overall, I've loved pretty much every book I've read by Rena Kent. Alright guys, that is it for my giant Romantasy book haul. Thank you so much for watching, and please let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of the books I mentioned and which one is your favorite. Now I'd like to say a very special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Leslie, Christy, Kat, Lada, and Nerdy. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.